I'm in the cage. The lighting is low and the glass is hidden by shadows. I know it's the cage because I'm looking at Ren's armless body and pools of blood that surround him. I step closer. I'm behind Ren and I can't see his face. The cage is empty. We're alone and it's colder than usual. I step forward again, coming closer. I now see the glass. I can feel the silence and it's painful. I breathe and watch condensation slip from my lips. I arch my neck to look at Reynolds. But then the condensation disappears as I quiver. I can't breathe. I see my wife's lifeless dead face. Her eyes reflect the glass. Transparent. I see bone and sinew in ripped shoulders. The blood looks almost black. I begin to cry as someone steps out from the shadows in the distance. Born from the dark, Raoul steps forward and smiles.
"She enjoyed it,"
he says, his voice cutting through the darkness. Then an alarm, my alarm. I'm in bed, alone. I feel hot and the sweat is on my forehead. Where is she? The room feels colder without her. I feel this on my skin, and I'm ashamed to admit it, my heart too. When I had gotten into bed, I'd barely cared, but now I have to leave. I yearn for her presence. I hope she's okay. I think for a second about heading up to the garden, to the riverbank. Maybe she fell last night. But no, the door was locked when I came in. She must have locked up and gone somewhere. I allow that thought to linger. It stings. Normally, I'd be up by now, with my head in the sink while the kettle boils, but not today. I lay in the darkness, not wanting to move. I feel the need to pull the cover over my head, and for a brief moment, I consider calling in sick. But no. I set my alarm to go off in another 10 minutes. Not in uniform, I couldn't bother to get changed. I look at the work car park just before heading in. The sun is peering over the orange hard brick of nearby buildings. I look at the sky. It's beautiful, a concoction of red and blues. I push open the door into the dull corridor with its grey carpet. I've never felt so depressed to be at work. I think about people's thoughts and emotions, which is alien to me. Normally I'm independent, not regarding other people's thoughts as a priority. But when someone's murdered and people are pinning the blame on you, it becomes hard not to wonder what they're actually thinking. Do they actually blame me for Ren's death? They've now had time to really make up their minds. They've slept on it. I hope to enter the changing room to people talking about last night's game. But of course they won't. Reynolds' death will be in their minds, like his blood, I'm sure, still remains on the glass of cage 4. I walk into the locker room and hear mumbling men. As I peer around the corner, I see them all huddled, all looking down at something, reminding me of a pride of lions feasting. But on what? The Alpha is dead center. Cade's huge back rises like a mountain as I see the others are huddled round. I hear a couple of cackles and gasps of amazement. Then Rick sees me. "Whoa, guys, he shouts. The Proud of Lions turns to look at me. At the entrance, I stand alone. Cade turns his head and looks at me with the eyes of victory. He is now my boss. I see a small smile that reveals much more, like I'm below him as a human being. He looks at the others and laughs, Joshua included, which hurts. I see their exchange, their smiles. They're ridiculing me. "Hey, Barrett, it's a real shame about yesterday," says Cade, still smiling. The Pride of Lions is now much more like a pack of hyenas. No pride, just scavengers filling up on my misery. My colleagues smile at me as they sort out their ties and put on their caps. What astonishes me is the lack of remorse for Ren. The primary emotion is joy at my career setback. I know. I'm really sorry for Reynolds and his family. He was a good guy. He didn't deserve that, I say, walking to my locker. "Oh yeah, I guess that's a shame too," says Cade, grinning. The others enjoy this coy smile and begin to echo it themselves. I feel strange. Their smiles are so abstract. Cade puts on his cap with his chin held high. He walks past me and plants a heavy hand on my shoulder when he walks out. His gang follows his giant frame, leaving me to get changed alone. I walk out the locker room dressed ready, down the corridor with anxiety in my stomach. I see through the glass of the door to the handover room. The boys all stood in navy listening. me on the other side of the glass. I open the door and hear the night guard going through last night's events. I can tell by his dulcet tones nothing happened really, and I breathe a sigh of relief. As the door shuts behind me, Joshua turns to look. He smiles and quickly turns back around. I'm barely listening to what's being said, as I watch Bloggs come out of his office and we all instinctively look over. But he only wants one thing. He gives Cade the nod, and he leaves towards Bloggs' office as the night guard continues. I watch Bloggs' hands. They plant on Cade's back with a big smile. Apparently they're best mates now. As I'm staring at Bloggs, he shuts his door, then goes to shut his blinds at his office window, and he catches me looking. I feel his grey eyes scowl as the blinds close. Handover finishes, and a higher than usual amount of staff drift into the killing fields. The sun rises, but the sky remains grey behind dark rain clouds on the horizon. The floodlights of the glass cages illuminate the dark day. I see 5 guards near cage 2 discussing whatever. My usual mates, people I normally gravitate towards. Joshua's there, but I decide against it, feeling awkward and still an outcast. I turn back in, deciding to make an extra strong coffee. I'm hit quite hard by the heating, not realising how cold it was outside. As I walk the room towards the canteen, the warden's office door clicks and closes. I don't look, but in my peripheral I can see Cade.
"Ah, Barrett, can I have a word, please?"
says Cade in a voice that affirms his seniority.
"Yes, sir,"
I say, biting the inside of my mouth, meaning it sarcastically.
"No need for that, Barrett. Yes, I'm your boss, but I'm not running that kind of show. Cade is just fine,"
he says, not needing to show off. He's in charge and he knows it. "I'm just going to get a coffee from the canteen. Want to meet me back here in 10 minutes, I say.
"How about I come with you? I'm dying for a cup of tea,"
he says. Strange, I think. I never had him down as a tea drinker. We walk the corridor in silence, him behind following my steps, and I'm all too aware of it. I feel like I'm being escorted away by the bigger man, the better man. I can hear confidence in them steps. I push open the door to the canteen and hold it for Cade. But rather than walk in, he holds the door for himself, making sure that I walk ahead again. I walk into the canteen, and still a word hasn't been spoken. I'm sure he's going to go along the lines of, I shouldn't hold any bad feelings, he hopes this won't get in the way of our work, that usual crap. He takes a seat on a small plastic chair beside the white table, and I hear it creak.
"Get us a tea. 2 sugars,"
he says. His confidence and authority enrage me. I never like getting talked down to, but this isn't a playground. I have a mortgage to pay for, so I keep my mouth shut and smile. I walk over to the hot drinks machine and press the buttons. First my black Americano, then his tea. As it dispenses, I pick up 2 sachets of sugar and keep them in my palm. I take the hot drinks over to the far table that Cade sits on, and I sit opposite him. I place the drinks down in the empty room, and the steam of the drinks raises up between us.
"I need to talk to you about something. Man to man,"
he says, picking up the plastic cup that looks tiny in his gigantic hand. I don't say a word. I look down at my black coffee as the steam rises from it.
"Maybe it's better if I show you,"
he says. He delves into his trouser pocket and pulls out his phone. He presses on the touchscreen, finding something. Then a small grin appears on his face. He's found what he's looking for. His fingers pause and he takes in the image. His tiny teeth bite his lip as he takes a little pleasure.
"If it was me, I'd want to know,"
he says, with besotted eyes that fixated on that phone in his hand. Finally, he puts the phone on the table, screen up, then slides it between our 2 cups. I see the image. It's pornography. And a woman is on her knees sucking a penis. But then I see it. I recognize them eyes, looking through the screen, through me. It's my wife. The image feels alive, though she's really there. She looks sweaty with strands of hair running down her face. She looks beautiful in the most disgusting way possible. I root my eyes from the screen and look at Cade. He's nearly laughing with teeth that stare at me.
Can you believe it?
He says. His cheek muscles are tense, barely able to hold back his joy.
I want to know if it was my wife. Tricky one, though,
he says.
She's a whore, but God, she gives good head. What am I meant to do?
He says. The laughter comes out in a big bellow as he leans back in his chair. His face turns a deep red and his eyes begin to water.
I'm sorry, mate.
He's halfway through apologising when my coffee hits his face. The steaming hot dark drink of liquid burns his red skin. I hear the hiss of the nearby boiling liquid against his skin for the briefest second. His face stares as steam rises from it. I rise with it, staring at his face with an expression I have never seen, something best described as missing. As I leave the canteen, we glare at each other all the way out. I kick open the canteen door and walk the dull corridor with a fire in my mind. My wife's beautiful eyes are in my mind for all the wrong reasons. Big innocent eyes full of filth and a mouthful of Cade. As I walk, the darkest thoughts engulf my mind. I resist the urge to scream. As I walk, I want to hear the canteen door behind me, almost urging it, but nothing. I make it all the way to the handover room without a breakdown or neither Cade behind me. I walk fast as Blog watches me from his office. I am almost running out through the door into the killing fields. The cold air hits me, but it's no relief. My stomach burns with my mind. The black clouds have arrived, making the glass cages look all the more alive, brighter. The first drop of rain falls, and I sit down for reasons I don't understand. The best I can explain is I feel broken, and sitting down is safer. Time passes, but it's indistinguishable time, as I try not to think about the unthinkable. Then I notice I'm not alone. Pairs of black shoes surround me, and riot shields land at my feet. For the first time, I notice the rain is coming down hard as I look up at Joshua and Stimps. Cade's called for a raid in Cage 4, says Joshua, without a hint of concern for his friend on the floor. I'm back in Cage 4. It feels more nightmarish than yesterday. I'm not really there, still trapped in my mind with suffocating thoughts of my wife and Cade that consume me. In full riot gear, my colleagues pass me, 5 on either side, shouting, shields up with adrenaline pumping. I feel literally the opposite of them, and it shows as my shield dwindles by my side.
Barrett, shield up for Christ's sake,
shouts Vorney. They all approach the corner, where Raoul and his disciples watch us. His dancers have stopped. I check down the line of guards, but I can't see him. I look at the glass door and no sign. Where are you, Cade? Suddenly there's a grip on my arm, and I'm being pulled. We're staring face to face.
Pull yourself together,
says Joshua. I've never seen him so serious. It's shocking. He's the Joker and the Jester. Yesterday must have been the day the clown died. He looks at me with a look of ferocity and sorrow.
We're doing this for Ren. We're going to show that corner. We're going to hurt those fucking weirdos, okay? Now get with it. Put your problems to the back of your mind,
he says, hitting me on top of my helmet, but not aggressively. The thud does me well, bring me back. I look across the cage and see almost the naked body of Raoul, and I feel a rage. I rage for Ren, but rage exacerbated by my slut wife and Cade. I don't feel good about this, but the thought of beating people down does feel good. With an unspeakable rage, I let my subconscious urges prevail. I grip my baton and punch Joshua's arm.
For Ren!
I scream. My voice rings out across the warm air, and I notice all my colleagues look back at me bewildered. I run towards the corner of the cage, bloodthirsty. Fueled by hatred, I run hard, past cowering convicts close to death that scuttle away like rats. I notice Raoul's bodyguards. They have seen us approach. They see fury. They look at each other, unable to leave their leader, but unable to win this fight. So fists come up, and they brace themselves. I see Raoul laughing hysterically, his eyes possessed, excited for his show. I raise my shield and baton and see the first one come at me. He's about 6'2" and surprisingly fat, with belly with legs. He doesn't attack as such, but his arms come up in a way that stop me, his eyes full of fear. He's outgunned. I sidestep him, his big belly stopping him from moving fast. I then lash the iron baton across his face and jaw. I don't hear a crack, but it's put him down on his back and he screams in pain. I look up and see a mini war scene. My men in blue fighting the topless convicts, but it's not a fight, it's a beating. Batons lashing against open skin and ribs, tasers burning into torsos one by one as they hit the floor. As I gaze, I feel for the moment, like watching a film. My shield comes down. I then feel a huge thud on my neck and fingers crawl around my throat. I collide to the floor with what feels like the world on top of me. I can't breathe. Winded, air escaped me, and I look into the eyes of Cade Shaw. He's almost purple with white saliva dropping from his lips, and with every ounce of him he grips my neck. His grip's so hard I feel tendons tearing my neck. He shakes with rage. I can see where the boiling coffee has struck, a shiny glazed mark that now surrounds his chaotic eyes. I can tell by his eyes and the tension in his arms he's trying to kill me. Suddenly, I'm aware of things you shouldn't be aware of. Breathing. It's not happening. And if he doesn't let up soon, I'll be dead. The distant cries of the others begin to fade. I'm not sure if it's because their fighting has stopped or it's my consciousness that is slipping. But the lights are fading too.
You bastard,
says Cade, showing his teeth like a possessed dog.
Throw coffee in my face? Who do you think you are?
I attempt to say his name, but nothing comes out. Everything's turning black, and my body burns. My lungs feel like they're about to tear open, and my head's ready to burst. I'm going under. The last thing I see is the evil eyes of Cade. Air rushes in like into a vacuum, but I can't get enough. I gasp and choke on it. It's never felt so thick, so precious. I choke uncontrollably. As lights fill the room again, shouting returns to my consciousness.
What the hell are you doing?
I hear a cry. I notice I'm no longer in the cage. I'm outside it, and the glass door has been locked. Several feet away, a circle of my colleagues argue. Everything begins to piece itself together. My friends have got to Cade. He was trying to kill me. They had stopped it and dragged me out. It's that realization that he was trying to kill me that burns brightly in my mind.
You were mad. You nearly killed him,
says Joshua. They haven't noticed me. I'm up walking to the armory. There's something in there. At the back of the safe box with a coded lock on it. Only I, Byron, and the warden know the code. That's where I'm heading, almost calm, with no hesitation. My mind has been made up. I don't know how I look, returning to the outside of Cage 4. The arguing has almost stopped, but as they look at me, everything goes deathly quiet. Cade has his back to me. He doesn't even turn around to see what the others are staring at. A sign of his arrogance that will cost him. I carry an assault rifle, but it isn't loaded. CW stripped the place of all its ammunition 2 years ago, but it does have a 12-inch bayonet blade at the end of the barrel. With the others frozen to the spot, I walk over and make the shiny metal blade disappear deep into Cade's lower back. There's no noise, it's all too easy. The blade slips in like a hand through snow. I pull it out. It's almost like it didn't happen. But as Cade turns around to look at me, blood begins to spill from his gut, making it all too real. I thrust it in again. He looks now, and even he can't deny the knife in his guts.
My God,
he whispers as he drops to his knees. The boys in blue do nothing but watch. As I pull out the blade, we all look at the same point, where the blood spills from Cade's stomach. The only person who doesn't is Cade. He looks at me with big wondering eyes. You screw my wife, then you try to screw me.
What else did you expect?
I say, dropping the cold metal gun that clatters on the floor, followed by Cade, collapsing at its side. I look at my colleagues who stare aghast. Enjoy your day, I say, turning to the main building, leaving a trail of blood in my wake. I leave the building in the middle of the day, seeing my car beneath the blue sky as the sun is suddenly shining. Then I realise I need to get out of here fast. I run down the steps across the road without looking, over the grass into the car park, and realise I don't have my keys. As I realise that, there is a stroke of luck. I hear the hum of a bus, and then a hiss as it brakes, coming to a stop at the bus stop 20 yards down from my work entrance. It's the 107, and it passes through my village. I run over as its door is about to close, and I put my hand between the door and it reopens. I see the pissed off look of the driver, but don't pay him any concern as I step onto the bus. "Hey," he shouts. "Yeah?" "Where are you going?" he says. "Torksey." "580 then," he says. I don't have it, and for a moment I feel a dirty concoction of nerves and anger churn inside me. I want to grab his throat, tell him to take me wherever I want to go. As I close my eyes, weighing up all my little options, I decide the police are going to be here any moment, and the bus driver is taking me for free. If he argues, his nose is getting broken. I take a step in his direction, and then feel someone take my hand. "You need money, love," says an old woman with red lips, white hair and sunglasses on. Her sweet smile neutralizes the ideas of hurt as she hands me a note. "You men at the correction centre are doing a wonderful job, keeping them vermin away from us good people. Keep the money," she says with a smile. "You don't know the half of it," I think, smiling as I pay the bus driver. I get into my house and begin to shake as the adrenaline wears off. The house is empty. My heart begins to race, as being in the kitchen alone, so alone with the police on their way. I just killed a man, and my wife doesn't want me. I won't be able to work, pay for the house, and I'm a murderer. Why can't I breathe properly? I'm having a panic attack. Adrenaline seethes through me as my world ends. Am I going to die? I pace the kitchen, needing something, but what? I smack the fridge hard with my fist, not sure why. Then I scream and sit leg crossed on the floor. My breathing begins to smooth. My world has collapsed. I can't grasp the situation and gather my cool. I can't wrap my fingers around the panic of my mind and hold onto it tight. Rather than try to control it, I let it go, throwing it away, and I begin to cry. Tears begin to run down my face, for the second time in days. I slowly pick myself up and head to the bathroom, taking off my clothes. I sling them into the corner, into a blue heap, and release the pressure from the tap. Hot water begins to gush and steam fills the room. So I turn on the cold and turn off the hot completely. I can almost see the demons in my mind. I step into the bath and under the ice-cold water. It makes my head freeze, and inside my brain has been put into a fridge. It's just what I want. I let the cold take hold. Almost hurting, I like it. I feel different, and that's what's important. I begin to regain a coherent thought without panicking. This is the reality. My wife has gone, and I've murdered a man, and soon the police will be here to arrest me. Life as I know it is over. But life is always a subject of change. I turn off the cold and reach for my white towel, drying myself. I look into the mirror with a realization. I am a murderer. Do my eyes look meaner? Perhaps it's just the tension in my face. I remind myself Cade had tried to murder me, so I murdered him. Did I defend myself? But his back was turned. The knife, the rage. It was definitely murder. I walk to my bedroom naked and take out my blue tracksuit bottoms and plain white t-shirt, slipping on white socks. I walk back into my lounge and hear my steps are extra loud. The room feels silent. Only the humming fish tank and the lighting seems to move. Clouds have gathered outside. Outside, everything seems loud. A car driving past, and I feel I can hear the people talking across the street. I arch my neck to look through the blinds, but nobody's there. I refuse to sit in this silent room. If I do, I'll be able to hear the insides. I would sit anxiously, waiting for the real boys in blue to arrive, the ones with flashing lights who get to see the law, not ignore it. I walk out the room into the kitchen and out the back door, taking my trainers off the doormat, slipping them on, and beginning to walk down the garden. The air has turned cool. Too cold for a t-shirt, but I'm not fazed. I walk out the back gate and up the riverbank. I look at the water and think about diving in, hoping the current might drag me down, deep to a place where the earth has turned black. I embrace the wind and look at the cooling towers on the horizon. As I stare at the smoke rising at the top, I hear the sirens coming into the village. First they're faint, riding softly on the wind, but they grow, becoming too heavy for the wind, intruding nature and intruding my driveway. I turn and walk back down my garden, Hidden by a tree, I look down towards my house, and I can make out the flashing lights between the green leaves, and I gravitate towards it. I see the first police officer at my back door. I call them the boys in blue, but I'm wrong. These boys are in black. Heavy duty, bulletproof vests with the word police in white writing on their backs. I count 7 at my back door, 3 on each side, with riot shields, one banging on the door, who's not in full riot gear. He wears a blue shirt beneath a black vest. "This is the police," shouts the man, his fist hitting my new door I only bought last year. "We're going to enter your premises. When we do, you will be on the floor with your hands in the air. Failure to do so could result in deadly force," he says, his voice surprisingly loud and clear, hearing him from the back of the garden perfectly. I watch him give the nod to the team that awaits. The police destroy the door. I hear the glass crack, and with a final swing the door flies off its hinges, and into the kitchen with 6 police officers following it. I can't believe they've not noticed me. I've walked down my garden now, standing in the centre, watching them flood into my house. If I had a gun, I could do so much damage. I don't think that's in a murderous way, more in a professional way. The man who had banged on my door turns casually, and he sees me. He's about 40 and black, but even he seems to turn paler as he sees me. "Halt!" he screams down the windy garden, barely able to get his words out. I stand there and put my hands in the sky. "Get to the ground!" he shouts, pulling a gun from the holster on his belt that I hadn't noticed. My arms are high in the sky, and I get to my knees. I then notice the police car's flashing lights coming over the top of my house. The police officer in a blue shirt approaches me, the gun fiercely pointed at my head. "You move an inch, and a bit of metal will be deep in that skull. You understand? Now hands on your head," he shouts, edging closer. I do as he says, as his reinforcements come exiting out my house. I watch the army of shields come towards me as the police officer in the blue shirt glares. "Get back," he shouts. A foot away from me, I see big whites in his eyes and pearly teeth framed in a thick goatee. "This one's mine," he says, patting around his belt with one hand whilst the other points a gun in my face. "Someone pass me some cuffs for Christ's sake," says the new apparent leading officer. A guard in full riot gear, with his face disguised by a reflective visor, hands his boss some heavy-looking black cuffs with no chain. "Thank you," he says, grinning like a lion with his prize. He walks around me, standing behind me, and takes my wrists. I'm feeling dominated, humiliated. How I wish I had that gun. I look around at the faceless men in riot gear, a full circle of them, as he cuffs me. "Take him away, boys," he says. I hear him chewing gum as I'm led down my garden, past my house and towards their flashing lights. The unimaginable inevitability has become a reality. "15. I sit in the questioning room. The aroma of black coffee they provided me reminds me of the moment with Cade in the cafeteria. It all reminds me of his laugh, also his stare after I threw that boiling cup in his face. Everything reminds me of that moment. The small plastic chair I sit on, the cheap wooden table with a digital recorder sitting on top of it. But it's not the physical things that matter. The questions haven't yet begun. Who knows if they will? Should I be thinking up an alibi? What's the point? I killed Cade, with several people witnessing the blade deep in his stomach. The door behind me opens, and the black officer in a blue shirt enters. Just now without the bulletproof vest. His smile has disappeared. He has a folder tucked under his arm, and he sips on a hot drink himself. Walking around the table with a small woman, she is stunning. Even with all this shit going on, I can't help but wonder how she looks in her underwear. Her hair is nearly black and pulled back by a ponytail. She wears thick black rimmed glasses that matches her hair. Her eyes are piercing, somewhere between green and blue, and her skin is pale, but soft and unblemished, contrasting against the dark hair, accentuating all assets, even the glasses and the suit she wears. Her body is slight, but emerging between the business jackets are breasts covered by a slim white shirt. For a woman so petite, I'm surprised by their size. Even impressed. Her legs are covered by black ties that cascade from a small black skirt, leaving little to the imagination. "Right, so what happened?" says the sergeant, disturbing my fantasies as he takes a seat. I watch the woman take out pen and paper from her case that she carries as the officer in charge takes another sip of his drink as we all sit around the table. Do we have the right to a witness? I ask. If you want one. By the way, this thing is already recording, so anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. That understood? I nod. This is Officer Alexa Ruby. She'll be here to bear witness to my interview that I'm about to conduct. So you want your own witness? They both look up across the table, and I shake my head to say no. They both look at me quite surprised. I even see a small smile from Wadlow. Fantastic, he says, leaning a little closer, knowing his job has just got a little easier. I personally have no intention to make things harder than it needs to be. So, Mr. Barrett, could you please tell me about today's events? From the beginning, what happened? Says Officer Wadlow, as Alexa looks up at me over the glasses, with eyes that numb all that is wrong in the world. I killed him, I say, staring at Officer Alexa. The eye contact remains. She pulls her eyes away from mine and begins to write. What time did you get up this morning? Says Officer Wadlow. I killed him with a bayonet because he tried to kill me, I say, turning towards Wadlow. He had shown me pictures of my wife and him. I reacted. I threw coffee in his face in the canteen. Later he tried to kill me in Cage 4 in Corrections Centre, strangling me. I passed out. Once I regained consciousness, I took a bayonet from the riot gear room and stabbed Cage Shaw in the back, then in the stomach. Is that enough? I say. The two officers stare with a poker face, not knowing their competitor has folded. Look, I stabbed him whilst his back was turned. I take full responsibility, but please bear in mind that he tried to murder me, I say, leaning towards the recording machine on the table. Save it for the judge, Barrett. We're just here to collect the facts, not pass judgment, says Wadlow in a deep voice felt on the air. So you're giving us a confession, Mr. Barrett, says Alexa for the first time. Her voice is husky. It's a woman's voice, not a girl's, full of intelligence and etiquette. I notice her lips, so beautiful and red. I want to hear them whisper in my ear. Yes, you have it, I say, looking at Alexa, looking at her waist and admiring her. And you'd be willing to give that up in court? Says Wadlow with his eyes on me. His are brutish and brown, hers are like the ocean. Yes, I say. Good. We won't have to wait long for a court date then. With confirmation and confession, we can get you before a judge next week. Thanks, Barrett. Can I go home then? I ask, my eyes flickering between the bad and the beautiful cop. They exchange a look, and Wadlow bursts into laughter and then looks back at me. Don't be stupid. You're on a murder charge. We don't let murderers just go home. What world are you living in? Says Wadlow. The misery in my face must be obvious, as I notice a sympathetic smile from Alexa. You know, you could plead for manslaughter, and I do recommend a lawyer, Mr. Barrett, says Alexa, giving me a small smile again. Wadlow's face looks like he's chewing on shit, as he looks at his colleague, grimacing, showing purple gums. Do you mind, Officer Ruby? He says, looking down at her. Well, it's our duty to tell Mr. Barrett what he's entitled to, says the officer, looking at Wadlow with the same courtesy. Look, I will lay it down, Barrett. On that tape, you admitted to intentional murder of Cage Shaw. Now, you're going to be going to a holding cell, where you'll remain until your court date comes in. In court, if you plead guilty, the judge may look at you more favourably, and your sentence may be reduced. You understand? This is where me, you and Alexa part ways, says Wadlow, turning in his chair from me. He takes his radio from his belt and presses a button, speaking into it. We got what we needed. I have transport arranged to get him out of here. He continues to speak as my eyes are besotted with Alexa, who tries not to look back, but her eyes do flick my way. Human evolution to enjoy beauty is doing a fine job releasing endorphins, making this not seem too bad. Wadlow puts down his radio, and almost immediately, two officers come into the room and cuff me. They pull me up, and I make it easy for them. I just stare at Alexa, who resists the urge to look back at me. I know she's attracted to me. It's in her eyes as they look to the side, catching me in her peripheral vision. It's what women do when they fancy someone. I'm dragged out the room in the station, out onto the street. Its dark as lampposts illuminate the night. Waiting for me at the police car is another clean-cut officer stood at the driver's door waiting to escort me. The officers don't speak. They throw me in and the engine starts, leaving me to wonder what misery awaits. "16. Welcome to St. Christopher's Holding Prison," says the stern-looking, high-cheekboned prison officer next to me. He's about 50, and his face shows all the hardness of a weathered rock. Crow's feet around his eyes and a square jaw. He's tall and skinny, even sat down. His uniform is dark blue, like the ones I used to wear, but big silver shiny buttons keep it together. "Have you anything to declare?" he says with a croak in his voice as I sit opposite him. "Like anything," he says, lifting that jaw, looking down a bridge-nosed. I shake my head, and he slides over a neatly folded pair of clothes, a grey jumper and matching tracky bottoms. "Put these on when you get to your cell. My name's Brevis. I've been assigned to you, and I'll be dealing with you during your stay. I've checked your paperwork, and I see you have a court date in 4 days' time. It's not too long to get comfortable, so don't," he says, standing up, revealing his true height of about 6'6". "I don't intend to," I say, following his lead, standing up myself, still wearing cuffs. "I've got you a lovely cellmate, by the way. His name's the Joker. At least that's what the press called him." "Why, is he funny?" I ask. Brevis smiles for the first time, but he doesn't answer. He leads me out the cold room, and I pass cold concrete walls painted white. I walk down the corridor, towards an iron door. Brevis punches in a code into a keypad beside the door, and we enter the main part of the prison. In front of me is a large square opening. I guess I'd call it a congregation area. 2 floors with rows of iron doors all numbered. The room is all grey and white. The floor, the walls, the iron stairs. The only thing that isn't is the light blue round table in the centre of the room, with about 40 small circular chairs built into the ground around it. I look out and see 2 prisoners cleaning the floor, and I notice a clock for the first time in ages on the back wall. It's 10:15. Everything is quiet in the brightly lit room. It's clean and smells like it has been freshly mopped. "You're cell 8, says Brevis, walking me to the left side of the room. The cell door is sheltered by a second floor's landing. "I'll warn you now, your cellmate isn't right. In the head, I mean. If he does anything too weird or threatens you, just scream and someone will hear you. We will get to you as fast as we can. And if we feel it's needed, we'll take him into solitary, okay?" says Brevis, taking a set of keys from deep in his pocket. "I don't think he'll be too bad. Last couple of days he's been pretty calm," says Brevis to try and reassure me. "I want you to step into the cell. When we open it, I'll lock you in. Then put your hands out and I will unchain you through the hole in the door, okay?" I do as Brevis says, stepping into the cell and turning around. I watch the heavy iron door slam. It's the sound of crushed freedom. Then a little slide door, about the size of a shoebox, slides across, and Brevis's empty eyes look at me. I stick out my wrists so he can release the cuffs. He does so and snatches the cuffs away. "Enjoy your stay," he says with a small smile, sliding the mini door back across and locking me in for a second time. I turn around and look at the cell. 6 feet away is a wash basin and a mirror. It's made of a reflective plastic, and I can barely see my reflection. Just a distorted one, like being in a carnival's haunted house. To my right is the bunk beds, built into the wall. The highest bunk is about 2 feet from the ceiling, and I can see someone on top of it. I walk to the bottom bunk and take my seat on the hard bed. It's not like concrete, but it feels like hard rubber, with a sheet thrown on top. I lay on the bed, deciding not to change into the clothes Brevis gave me. The ones I wear still represented little freedom. As I lay there, I'm reminded by Brevis and something he said about my roommate. "Knock, knock," I hear. It's almost a whisper. It creeps across the air with a hiss and it lingers. I try to ignore it, telling myself it didn't happen. Was it from outside the cell? Knock, knock, I hear again, with a hint of agitation in the words. I speak. Who's there? I whisper. There is a palpable pause. Fuck, he finally says, with an extra pronunciation on the CK. It's almost violent. Fuck who? I ask, feeling childlike. Fuck you, he says. My heart jumps against my ribcage as I see a pale-faced maniac hang over the top bunk, laughing at me from above. His eyes move in all directions, his cheeks puff out as he laughs hysterically. It jitters, low then high like a clown. His pale face is greasy with black curly hair. His skin is covered in crevets, scarred by acne. But as I look closer, I notice it's scars from scratching. Only messing, I'm messing. Look at you, like a child. First day at school. Bless, he says, rolling off the top bunk and landing beside me. He stands straight and puts his hands on his hips, looking at me on my bed, his eyes spending an uncomfortable amount of time on my groin. So what do you do? He asks with grey jumper and tracksuit bottoms. His hair's a mess. His teeth are awful, almost rotten. I see blackness when he speaks. Murder, I say. He sucks in on his lips and smiles. Oh, get you, he says, waving a hand, looking and sounding rather camp. You? I ask. He looks sheepish and proud at the same time, looking left and right as though somebody may be watching, then cusps his mouth as to whisper so nobody can hear. I did a thing, he whispers, then grabs a handful of himself. His boyish mischief is washed away, replaced by dead eyes and gritted teeth. I hurt them, he shouts at me. Then the serious look is gone, and the mischief is back. He smiles whilst fluttering his eyelashes, then jumps back onto his top bunk. What's your name? He says, lying on his chest, looking over with doe eyes. Barrett. Dan Barrett, I say like a criminal Bond. You? Jason. But friends call me Joker. You decide which one you're going to call me, which one you want. He says, giggling. I smile and take the advice. Joker it is, I say. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Sleeping isn't easy in a prison. Knowing you could spend the rest of your life behind bars. My mind flicks between three evils. Waves and images of Cage Shaw, back with the knife inside him, come and go. When the anxiety has worked its way through me, and my mind begins to relax, then it's my wife's turn. I see her big beautiful eyes harnessed upon another man, taking him into her mouth. Killing Cade was hate. My wife is sorrow, both painful. The third evil is above, as being locked in a cell with insanity. I keep imagining Joker's head appearing from his bed, smiling at me with that chaotic grin, then anger, then the unknown. I normally hate it when people snore, but not tonight. I want to hear him snore so loud, to know he's not awake, but instead, there is silence. I reside to not sleeping tonight. I take my mind somewhere beautiful. I imagine that Alexa, the officer in the questioning room, her eyes and her perfect lips, that body. She looks beautiful in clothes, but I imagine her without them. I see her on all fours on a bed in a hotel room, on the top floor in a beautiful city with the lights behind her. She's just in her underwear. I imagine the way her back arches, and she looks at me with seductive eyes. I indulge myself, walk over to the bed, delicately touching her face. Her cute smile moves me, down below. I reach for her bra, and she sits up on her knees, like a beautiful flower rising towards the sun. God, how badly I want her. She reaches up behind her back, slipping off her bra, when I hear something. I'm back in the cell, and I can hear shuffling above me, with a groan. I'm listening to another man pleasure himself. I turn over in the bed, and wait for the morning. The small slide door clashes against the bigger metal door, and the lights flicker on. I don't grimace, as my eyes have been open all night. I look at the door, and the eyes of Brevis is looking at me. "Get up," he says. "It's feeding time." I change into the clothes I was given. The door opens and the 4 guards wait outside the cell. They lead me and Joker to the blue table in the centre of the congregation room. I take a seat, and slapped in front of me is a poached egg on toast and a bucket of baked beans. The food is a welcome sight. With just me and Joker at the table, we eat in silence. We're informed we both have visitors by Brevis. As I chew on my beans, I wonder who it could be. The more I wonder, the more anticipation grows. I throw my food down my gullet and embrace the burn. Within 2 minutes, my plates are left with crumbs, and I'm given a hot coffee. I watch Joker eating slow, wondering if he's deliberately trying to annoy me. I'm reminded of that moment with Cade and the coffee. I think about doing the same to the Joker, but sense has got the better of me. A full 10 minutes later, we're escorted down a grey corridor to the visitors' room. There is a long glass panel across the room, splitting it in 2. Either side is a chair, each with headphones and speakers built into the table, 3 on each side. Standing behind the glass, furthest away, with tearful eyes and greasy hair, is my wife, looking like a hobo with fashion sense. She's become the definition of a wreck. I almost feel sorry for her. Then I look at her and think of them lips I used to kiss. You bitch. I stand staring. She doesn't smile. She simply stares back at me, and I think about giving her the middle finger. But curiosity gets the best of me, and I move towards her. In sync, we sit down opposite each other. The last time our eyes had been this intense upon each other must have been a decade ago. I was making love. I slip on the big headphones and lock myself into a world with her. "Why?" I ask. I needed to see you," she says. "What the hell are you talking about?" I shout. "Calm it, Barrett," I hear Brevis over my shoulders. "You didn't need me when you were sucking him off, did you?" I say, feeling like punching the glass in front of me. I'm sorry," she says, breaking into tears. They're genuine, and she shakes. I've forgotten she has emotions. "How did it happen?" I say, still not comprehending it. "We just started talking online. I think I noticed he worked where you worked, and, well, he added me and said hi, and he seemed nice," she says, with a shrug of the shoulders as tears slow. I didn't want to hurt you, Dan. You must admit, things haven't been right for a while. I wanted to move on, and a nice guy speaks to me. We got along, and I felt I deserved a life as well," she says, wiping tears with a handkerchief. "Yeah, I guess you did deserve to sleep with your husband's workmate. I'm sorry I'm such an arsehole." Her eyes look at me with hate. How dare I question her, mock her, make her realise what she is? How dare I hold a mirror up and show her who she is? "You know what?" I say, leaning close to the glass. "I'm glad he's dead," I say with a whisper only she can hear. She scowls, her eyebrows pull inwards, and then one elevates to reveal a look of surprise. "Has nobody told you?" "Told me what?" "Cade isn't dead. He's alive." There's a flicker of joy in her when she says it. "But how? I put a blade through his torso. I watched blood pour from him." "He's recovering in hospital. The doctors are astonished, but I'm not," she says, smiling, as I watch dumbfounded. "He's the strongest man I know," she says with a dirty grin. "He's a dick," I say, spilling the truth but still feeling petulant. "Dan, I want you to know something. I was there this morning, by his bed. He's going to be fine. You should know that when he gets better, me and him are going to be together, while you're locked away in prison. You can't hurt anyone any longer. I always knew there was something wrong with you, but trying to kill someone..." As she says it, tears come back. She looks at me with eyes that once loved me so much, but now are filled with such pain. "Bye, Dan," she says, pushing back in her chair and taking her handbag, heading out the door, leaving me to wonder if that's the last time I ever saw my wife. Hours pass, and my mind has travelled. Anxiety has evaporated, leaving me with a deeper, more rooted fear, a feeling of impending doom. As I lay on my bed, I think about Cade laying in bed like me. The only difference is, my wife is beside him, maybe holding his hand or running her fingers over his forehead. Truth is, I want my wife. I want to hold her, feel her warmth against me. How did I let her get away? "Hey, Barrett," says the Joker from the top bunk, his voice echoing off the steel of the cell door. "Yeah?" "Was that your girlfriend today?" he asks, sounding almost sane. "No." "Your wife?" "Yeah, why?" "Just wondering." "Huh. That means you've got a son then," he says, sounding excited. I don't reply. I know he's in a world of his own. I did want a son, but my wife was always put off it. I guess she knew it wasn't for her. I think it's because I was detached. A closed book, never fully allowing my emotions to show. "I like it when their mouth doesn't fit," says the Joker. His words are abstract and wrong. "What?" I ask. "Control. Do you like to be controlled, Barrett?" says the Joker. "No, I like control," I tell him. "Shame. I'll imagine your boy's mouth instead." "Does he have beautiful eyes like your wife?" "I would love them looking up at me, Dan. So seductive. I imagine they could have anything they desired, couldn't they, Barrett?" His words build something hateful inside me. The Joker is making me his joke. I know it. I get up off the bed and stand up, peering onto the top bunk. He's naked, and his eyes are closed. I watch his pale face and his hands play with himself. "You know why they call me the Joker?" he says, unaware that I'm so close. "'Cause all the kids loved me," he says, deep in thought. "I'm sure your kid would love me," he says. The fire he's creating hits my subconscious and reacts, and there's an explosion in my head. My hands wrap around his neck. His eyes open like a zombie. His face is emotionless. He reaches up with a sticky hand and it hits my forearm. I grab tighter. My fingertips dig into his neck, watching his face turn a darker shade of red. He begins to shake. His eyes bulge as I cut off his oxygen. Panic fills his eyes as he realizes death will soon be upon him. His eyes remind me of the last look a dog gave me before I hit it with my car. Then seething white pain hits my temple. I turn faint and fall to the floor. I'm out cold in the dark. As I regain consciousness, everything has been reversed. Now I'm on the floor, not near the ceiling, and he chokes me. His white linen bedsheet is wrapped around his knuckles and my neck. His knees dig into my back. He pulls the linen hard. I choke, trying to prevent the panic. Instinctively, my hands reach for his wrists, and I take them, and I feel stronger. With all my might, I raise to my feet. Slightly taller, he struggles to control me. With everything I have, I bend over. The cloth tightens momentarily, but I take him off his feet and he flies over the top of my back, and the sheet comes loose over my neck. I gasp on precious, nourishing air. Then, to celebrate, I crash my closed fist into the Joker's face. His nose pops. Then, for good measure, I kick him hard under the chin. It's lights out for him as he faceplants the floor. But the fire still burns deep inside me. I reach for the bedsheet, taking it in both hands. I wrap it tight around the neck of the Joker, catching his face on the sheet and turning it red. With it around his neck, I drag him towards the cell bed. I put his head against the headpost and then tighten his neck to the post, together with the sheet. I tighten and tighten, making him a part of the furniture. I wrap it so tight I almost cut my palms. Then I wrap it tighter. I stand back and watch his awkward body against the bed. It looks like the bed is eating him. His eyes open, and in them I see fear only death can bring. He panics, clawing at the sheet around his neck, cutting himself with dirty fingernails. The scratching becomes erratic as life fades from his eyes. His arms begin to die, dropping to the ground with his palms up. His face muscles relax, and his eyes glaze over. He's gone. I stare at his corpse attached to the bed, feeling no shame or guilt. I'm sure he's committed some of the most awful crimes imaginable. I shake my head, knowing this isn't good news, and do the only thing I can do. I go lay on my bed, my head at the opposite end to him, try not to look at him. He's hard to look at. A broken nose spilling thick blood from oxygen-deprived skin, with awful scratches at his neck. I stare at the bed above me and think of literally nothing. My mind has no reason. Eventually, the little slide door opens, and I hear a clash of metal and predictable silence. "Fucking hell," I hear Brevis say, full of disappointment, but still too calm, a man obviously used to finding corpses. "17. Without the sun, time seems disgustingly long. I don't know if I'm asleep or if this is all a dream. I'm in seclusion, in a lightly padded room, where I can't hurt myself or anybody. I think it's been days, but it could have been hours. I'm not really living anymore, but I feel alive. When I put my hand to my heart, I feel a beat, but nothing moves in my mind. I would feel the same if I was dead. The grand event in this passing of time is when Brevis, at least I think it's Brevis because he doesn't speak, slides a tray with a sandwich on it through the door. I then try to eat, but I cry. It's become my pattern. It's beyond a depression. I begin to scream. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it makes me feel different. If I scream, I might feel real for a moment. Since screaming is the sound of a strong emotion, so I mimic it, feeling real when there is nothing inside. I don't even need to deny it now. I want to die. The door finally fully opens. How long has it been? A week? 2? "Barrett," says Brevis. A human face. One has never seemed so perfect. "You're in court today. The big day. The first day of the rest of your life," he says. I crawl across the ground to Brevis' feet, to his shoes to touch the leather. It feels wonderfully real. I grip his navy blue trousers and rest my cheek against his leg. It's warm, and I cry. "Jesus Christ, has it been that bad?" "I'm alive," I whisper with a whimper. "Just about. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, though. Come on," says Brevis, pulling me to my feet and into the dark corridor. "It's Judgment Day," says Brevis, with a hand on my neck. It's an old court, held by wooden beams and wooden seats. It smells of wood and dust, and I feel cold, but I know that's more to do with my emotions. The room is packed with people I've never seen, talking behind me like judgmental vultures. I stare ahead at a female judge who reminds me of my primary school teacher. "Mr. Barrett," she says, all shrill and vile, a voice designed to lecture. The witnesses behind me go quiet as they prepare for the proceeding. The vulture-like judge looks at me like a mouse, something she could eat alive. "Silence in this courtroom," she says as the room turns still. "You are here accused of the attempted murder of Cade Shaw only several days ago. Mr. Cade Shaw isn't here, he's recovering in hospital. But recently, whilst awaiting trial, you are suspected of murdering a cellmate, Mr. Jason Jones. I've been informed that you intend to plead guilty. Is this true?" I take a moment to think, looking around the room and over my shoulder. In the crowd, I notice the police officers from the station, Wadlow and Alexa. Wadlow's standing there like a sports fan, willing me to confess, and the beautiful Alexa bites her nails and I smile at her. Her face calms me, showing me the world isn't all bad. I turn around and look at the vulture judge. She grins at me on the edge of her seat. "I'm guilty, Your Honour. I attempted to kill Cade Shaw in a blind rage, and I killed Jason the Joker too. I wish I could turn back the clock, but I can't," I say, hoping she will take pity on me. She looks down at me with a satisfied grin. "I thank you for your honesty, Mr. Barrett," she says, raising her chin, seeming to grow, sticking out her chest, sounding more condescending. "But I'm afraid this admission of truth will not help your case. This admission only proves you're aware of what you are doing. You're a truly evil man, Mr. Barrett," she says. "Deliberately seeking out a blade and stabbing a man while his back is turned displays a vile and violent demeanour society does not need," she says, raising her voice. "Then you kill a man whilst awaiting trial," she says. her voice echoing off the back of the courtroom. "Mr. Barrett, fortunately for me, there is a place that I am permitted, no, bound to, by my duty to send you. Believe me, it's what you deserve. I sentence you to 30-day term in the cage. Take him away," she says. The courtroom turns in gasps and murmurs. I even hear a small cheer from the back. From either side of me, 2 court officials take my arm. As they turn me around, I look towards Wadlow and Alexa. Wadlow pumps his fist, and Alexa stands aghast. The court officials begin to push me toward the exit, just past the empty witness stand. I walk down the steps into the darkness, not yet ready to think about the cage. I emerge outside the court feeling fresh air on my cheeks. There must be 100 people on either side of the barriers put up. I descend the stairs outside the court towards the road where the cameras begin to flash. I wonder how I've drawn such attention from the press, and then it hits me. It's a story. A cage security guard sent to the cage. My picture. This story will sell surely. I'm thrown into the back of a white van with blacked out windows and told to have my seat by the officers. They sit opposite me, and I hear the engine start up, and we begin to drive. As the van moves away, the road flashes, coming through little blacked windows. The press tries their best to get their best shot of me. I had barely time to blink, never mind think. But there isn't too much to understand. I'm off to the cage. Then I realise something so obvious I almost missed it. The cage. Hell on earth. That's not for me. I'm not one of them. Am I? How's this happened? The doors open. I've arrived. I look at the killing fields. I step off the van, watched by the court of officials, wondering for the first time, will I live through the night? I turn and see the 10 glass illuminating cages. My new home. Standing there, awaiting me, is my old colleagues, my old friends. "Well, well, well, look what we have here, boys," says Rick, light from cage 10 beaming off his head. "My God, look at the state of you," says Joshua. His tone has changed. The cheeky kid I once knew no longer exists. Just a mean set of eyes and judgmental thug remains. "I hope you rot, Barrett," says Byron, who I'm surprised to see there. "We heard what you did to that poor guy," he adds. I think about telling them he was a paedophile, but something tells me they don't care what I've got to say. Stimp steps forward and throws cage clothing at me. The folded pile hits me in the chest and I catch it. "Justice, finally," he says, stepping back to join the rest. I slip out of my clothes and into the new ones. As I'm pulling up my trousers, my old colleagues step apart, and through the middle of them, looking like the Grim Reaper, is Bloggs. He looks at me with them grey, empty eyes. "What happened, Barrett?" I don't answer him. I look at the sky. It's grey like Bloggs' eyes, and the darkness creeps in the distance. The heavens open up on hell, and it begins to rain. I'm glad, because it hides my tears that begin to fall from my eyes. Wearing the uniform of demons, I think about screaming, pleading forgiveness. But as I look at the sinister smiles of my old colleagues, I'm reminded of my guilt. Surrounded, I walk down the corridor in the rain, with Bloggs leading the way. Then a deeper evil. He stops outside cage 4, turning and nodding at me. "A special request," he says with a wink. I look through the glass to the far corner, the yellow light illuminating the madness. I see the dancers. I see the bodyguards. I see him. "Please, no!" I scream. Bloggs turns away, towards the glass door, pressing the button on the screen by the entrance we stand outside. "Joshua, please, please," I say, stretching out a hand through the cold rain. "You deserve it, Barrett," he says, looking at me with disgust. "Throw him in, boys." Arms and hands wrap themselves upon me like tentacles, pushing me through the door and onto the ground. Suddenly, being out of the rain and under the warm lights of the cage 4. Hearing the swish of the glass door behind me, I look up. Scattered men around me rise to stare, but they stay where they are, keeping their distance. I shake, looking at the ground frightened. I make myself look at the far corner. The dancing has stopped, and out of the crowd he appears, walking my way. Raoul walks the cage with the disciples following. He wears no shoes, just tattered shorts. He's close, and he's here, stopping mere meters away from me.
I have two types of people in here. Protectors and bitches. And I don't need any more protectors. So what does that make you?
He says, smiling. He walks forward and puts his arm around me, walking me away to his corner. I take one last look over my shoulder towards the door, to the cage, towards my old colleagues, and sitting there laughing, in a wheelchair, is Cade Shaw.